Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our coffee and chat this afternoon on change and project management. I've got my cup of tea, which is going a little bit lukewarm. I don't know, Tanya. This is Tanya from the Netherlands. Glass of water, or maybe it's something stronger.
No, I wouldn't dare.
Tanya's joined us all the way from the Netherlands. She is the owner of her own training company, accredited training organisation, Forza Advies. Have I pronounced that right, Tanya?
Excellent.
Yeah, super. And we've been put together through APMG, who I believe are hoping that we're going to do a recorded interview for their website at a date in the near future, to be confirmed. And we thought it was a great opportunity to get together and have a little bit of a chat now, and for us to learn a little bit more about sort of how change and project management mix or don't, and a little bit more about how the differences are in the Netherlands. So I guess, Tanya, sort of kicking off really, we're all going through a time of international change with COVID. How's that really affecting yourself and your organisation, in the Netherlands?
Well, it's been a roller coaster, and I find myself saying more than once this year, almost nobody has a good year this year. So there's not much reason to complain for me. We're doing okay, but I've noticed that in this second wave that we are having right now, we had a semi-lockdown. I think a week and a half ago, and now it's been more strict even. But we find that we are more capable now of dealing with it. On one hand, our customers and candidates are more used to working online. So it's easier for them to say, okay, no problem, we'll switch to online courses. And we know what to do. We've learned since March how to deal with this and how to resolve problems. So in this, but in many aspects in the Dutch society, you see that we have learned a lot, and things have changed a lot. We are able to work from home now, which was always an issue when we need more asphalt and more asphalt. Things that could never be attained somehow seem to happen in a very short period of time.
I certainly find it interesting how people's resilience has been built, and almost that kind of potentially that resistance to change for people working at home, and the resistance to being virtual, and maybe even just having cameras on and communicating in this way. I just feel that because we've been forced into that change and everyone just understands there is no return, that people have accepted it and kind of gone through that psychological phase quite quickly, and managed, we are all managing much better.
We do. I do must say it's not painless. I think a lot of people are maybe have used up the capacity to absorb change up to this moment and saying, okay, well, I need a breather now to be able to get my energy back and get my balance back. But large steps have been taken. I think people have healthier lifestyles in general, work more from home, work out more. That's quite a change.
There's a little bit more capacity, but I agree, it's tough, and I think people are getting very tired of the change as a whole. We're certainly back in full lockdown, and I know although it is very slightly different from before. With schools are now open, which they weren't. More organisations. People have had an opportunity to understand how they can continue to trade, for example, and work. We've all had some thinking time.
Most people.
Very challenging.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Sure. So how do you feel that when you're obviously training that this links in to project management, that sort of the change piece?
Well, I do think we benefit from having change or project management skills, because it requires more planning and more dealing with issues and risks than ever before. Last minute, you might have to change to an online course, sending out less course materials individually to each person. Normally, we would send out a part of the course materials to the venue, and now it needs to be split up in smaller packages, and you need to think more about when it will arrive and what are the risks that the post agency will be late. You have to communicate more. People need to understand when they will be expected, where they will be expected, how they can log on to a virtual classroom. So it requires more attentive and more planned approach. So that's a difference. Was that the question that you meant to ask? Am I answering your question correctly, or?
There's no correct answer.
Are you sure?
If we were looking at let's sort of jump into project management sort of generically, what sort of industries do you tend to find take up your offer most within the Netherlands, Tanja?
That's quite a wide range, and as I said before we actually started, Forza Advies focuses on improving project management skills in the Netherlands. So our scope is mainly the Netherlands. I'm sorry for that, my phone starts beeping. I had switched it off, but not
Don't worry at all, I hadn't heard
it. Good. And it's quite a variety of companies. So we work in the security safety area. You mentioned the Ministry of Defense. We work with a project with the Ministry of Justice. We work with, I don't know the exact word in English, but it's we have the Netherlands cut up in regions, and within these regions, the ambulance service and the fire department and the police work together. We call them sort of safety zones, safety regions. So we work with several of those. Other ministries, but also Liberty Global, who is sponsoring the Formula One. We've worked with MediaMarkt, which is a large retailing company in audio and televisions and phones and etc. for consumers. Several municipalities. So it's quite a variety of companies that we're working with.
It's a really broad base, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
And have you found that you've been able to? We were having a lovely chat actually before before you went live at 2, and yeah, I know that you've kind of majored initially within the project management sort of sphere, and then you had the opportunity to come over and do the APMG change management course, which you're a great fan of, and you're now trying to develop that as a more of a popular course and well known within the Netherlands. So are you finding that there are certain sectors who are more open and interested?
Yeah, I think companies that are working with the implementation of new IT systems, they would like to find ways and models to get more enthusiasm for what they're rolling out, particularly if you're in the area of SAP or ERP, and you need the company sort of adjusting around the new system. That's quite a demand that you're making towards the people working with the system. You're actually asking them to change their way of working to what you're offering, rather than customizing the software to the way they are working currently.
And do you think
that change management can be of a big added value there?
So you're suggesting that you're tending to find within the IT industry that there's more kind of resistance to.
Yeah, there's one audience there that benefits a lot from this. Yes. Yeah. But we've had all sorts of people, many managers from a hospital, somebody responsible for designing malls, like shopping malls, and to find out what would be the best configuration. We had I'm getting a blackout right now. Of course.
No, that's absolutely fine.
It's a wonderful audience, and there's so many. Somebody from the church looking for a way to reconnect the church with their audience. Yeah, it's a really wide variety of people that are joining our course.
I just think it's such a fundamental skill set to
Yeah,
understand
yeah,
both human and organizational approach to change, and
yeah,
how you can, minimize the pain effectively that change can cause, and the
yeah,
uncomfortableness of change. Um, I guess it would be ideal, because they're quite different skill sets, ICs, and project management and change management. I just think, personally, for organizations to realize that, if they want to do anything which is sort of out of business as usual, it is going to be a change. And any form of, large project is a change. To me, I see that as a change. And
yeah,
therefore,
yeah.
you know, the two should, I think, should be really be working in parallel, and coming together and seeing how they can support each other, as opposed to feeling that they're two different parts of an organization and not speaking.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think that it should be a partnership between somebody with the eyes on the people and the other person with the eyes on the task at hand, because if you manage the project right, you have the right facilities and the right products and the right necessities ready where they are needed in the right specifications, and that to me is a sort of a hygiene that you need for the change management process to work. If you say, well, and we need you to learn a completely different new way of working with a completely new system, but yeah, well, the courses are not that good of a quality and they're late, but I'm still asking this of you. It's not a fair deal. You need to take care of what's needed, and then the change management process can be founded on that. But I do think it's like having two different pairs of glasses. One sees the people and the other one sees the stuff, the products, the systems,
But there's so much kind of, overlap and linking with the
yeah,
messaging, the communication, and your stakeholders.
yeah,
And I think it is probably getting that common message out, that actually the two can really support each other
they need each
very
other.
well.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And one of the audiences, another audience is project managers that would simply want to know more about change management, understanding it, not per se because they feel they need to take care of the change process as well, but to be able to have the right conversation with the person who is supporting the change, who is maybe sponsor of the change. I had
No,
literally a candidate saying, I feel that the approach is not right, but I don't have the models or the insights to explain why what I think is wrong with it. So can I get the course and then be a better how do you say that? I I only get the Dutch words. It's to have to have the conversation in a more effective way.
effective way. No, definitely. And I think that, it's, to me, it's about the size of the organization as well, because obviously if we're talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
large industries and huge conglomerates, then yes, you might have, a change and transition,
yeah.
arm of
True,
the business,
true.
and then you've got the operational. But, if you take it down to the small and
Yeah,
medium-sized enterprises,
yeah.
you probably haven't got those separate roles. So that's where I feel
No,
it's so important that it
yeah,
has filtered down, and people, do have that common
yeah.
knowledge and understanding, because the pain can be really
That's true.
visibly
That's
sort
true.
of seen there.
If you have like a small move from one building to another, that can be project-wise a small thing. But change-wise, when you take somebody away from the group they have been in working for 10 years or so, it could
Mm.
be big.
That human element can really, really
Yeah,
affect people and their
I
motivation.
I had somebody at a desk that had been moved, and he was so angry. In the end, he just went home. He couldn't cope with it. He felt that he should have been informed better and differently. So to him, it was really an enormous shock. While in project management terms, it was moving one desk to from one office to another.
Very process. Just get it ticking a box. That's task done. We need to do X, but not actually understanding the human factor and element in any of that. And I think it's really common. And I think, you know, I've experienced it and seen it and been, you know, just another factor in that sort of, whether it be a move or, you know, an organizational change or a decision. But it's so often it is the sort of the project management, the strategic view without unpicking the human element. So that's where the change understanding of, you know, the effects of change really comes in.
So you're right. It does depend on the size of the change in the project and the organization that you're talking about, of course. Yeah.
And are there any particular models that you think are very, you know, which you favour? I know we had a bit of a conversation earlier that within, you know, the change management, you've had to adapt it slightly, you know, within the bounds of sort of APMG, obviously, so that it, you know, it's less anglicised and it suits the Dutch rather better. Is there anything there which you think's really, you know, you're a real fan of?
Yeah, well, two come to mind, and one is because it's practical, and I think if you need to start somewhere, you might as well start there, and that's probably obviously Kotter. You know, it provides a very easy to understand, quite complete approach that fits almost everywhere, but it's also a one size fits all. It doesn't always take into account important factors, and it doesn't really help you adjust to a particular situation. You need to think about that. But if I'm thinking about a model that really excites me and really gets me thinking, I would say, and I'm not sure whether I pronounce it right in English, but Peter Senge and his systemic thinking that was really an eye-opener to me to think about delayed effects and how processes can be virtuous or vicious. You know,
Yes, the cycles.
Positive effects can build, and but also negative effects can build. So if you get into a positive flow, you can get to the tipping point and get a really larger crowd moving into the direction that you were going for. Yeah. So that's and to understand in one of his YouTube clips, he says, if you would ask somebody, would you want to destroy nature, and would you want to deplete the natural resources, everybody would probably say, no, I don't want to. But still, we put the plug into the socket and we use power that's coming from the old sources.
Yes, our coal and our naturals.
And he says, well, a large part of the explanation for that is that it's happening elsewhere. You don't see it happening, and it's happening probably at a different moment. So the delay in time and the difference in between where you are doing what you're doing and the effects being caused elsewhere sort of disconnect this and disconnect the negative reinforcement or the positive reinforcement. And that's a really important factor in changes.
I really like the parallel that you've just drawn there. I think that's really, you know, really powerful. And I think it just helps explain and put it, you know, let everybody, you know, you've just really verbalized how the change over here, just because it's at a distance, can't necessarily be sensed, and you can't see the output, the outcome, without really thinking that through.
Yeah, and still, if you rationally understand it, you don't feel it and you don't see it. So is it really true? And I think that's, if we're talking about the current situation, there's a lot of what we're not sure is true. So it gets a different effect on how we behave.
No, that's very. I was just for a minute, my mind was going off to the US elections there, and I suddenly thought, no, I'm not going to do politics. I'm going to pull that back.
Well,
Oh, that's
without taking a side, when Trump starts to sending out messages that elections are being stolen, that gives an effect. But how can we know it's true?
absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to do nothing else on the
We're going to leave it
political
there.
front.
That's a good choice.
Could get me in a whole host of trouble. So I'm
Without
sorry
taking
if I look
sides.
distracted
Without
for a
taking
minute.
sides.
No, Cotter is a really popular one with our technical director, actually. You know, you can never mention the word change without Cotter and coming out. Do you have the book, My Iceberg is Melting,
Yeah,
translated
of course.
into, yeah,
Of course. That's
lovely
mandatory.
fun. Yeah, that's good.
Particularly
Well,
with
I'm
all
a
the
real
cute
fan of,
women.
I know, but it's really relatable. I mean, I just,
Yeah.
the one that really sticks to me in my mind, it's that really, really basic, you know, the Kubler-Ross,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you know, based on the grieving curve, because I just think everybody can kind of visualize that. And I know when
Yeah.
I'm thinking about change, I can almost sort of
Yeah.
think of that sort of slump and then pushing people back up the other side and keep reinforcing the messages. And I guess
Yeah.
it's just the strength of the communication piece. And I know that is kind of one of the very kind of early formative models, but it's just the one that I
No,
always
it's a
think
good
of.
one. Yeah. And during the courses, I always see people, sparking when they hear about it and say, yeah, I had that, or I saw that happening. It also, I don't know if you have the same, but I tend to take things sometimes more personal than I should. And change often comes with a lot of emotions. People being angry, people being disappointed, maybe a bit lethargic,
Yes.
apathy.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't have to do with you. It's part of the process. So once you can separate that from who you are and how you're trying to do the best for everyone around you, you will still get these emotions. People need these to deal with what's happening. So just realizing that can be very helpful. It's not you
No,
causing
I
it.
think 100% with that. I think it's, yeah, if people can understand that it's natural, very normal, to be expected, and not, you know, if you're the one who's trying to implement the change and you're receiving that resistance, not to take it as a personal assault against, you know, you yourself, and but understand, you know, this is a natural phenomenon, it's business, but I need to acknowledge and let people know that I understand that they're hurting, or ask the question, you know, how is this change going to affect you as an individual?
Yeah.
And so often I think people, once they feel that they've been listened to and you've taken the time to understand somebody's perspective, you don't necessarily need to solve that problem for them, but it gives them, they've kind of aired it and they can come to terms with it,
Yeah.
and they're far more likely to be able to move on.
Yeah. I might even go as far to say that when you notice these emotions, it's a positive sign.
Yes, because you are at that point they're realizing there is a human element and not just carrying on regardless.
But also apparently the audience is taking the change seriously. They are
Okay.
feeling that the change will actually take place. I've been in a room with when I worked at a customer on an interim assignment, and the room was with like 100 people, and this man came standing in front and he said, well, we are going to change some wonderful things are going to happen, and we're going to work real hard, but I will help you through it. Any questions? Nothing. Nobody asked a thing. And I had been working there on different assignments, I think 3 years altogether, on different different locations, different assignments. And I knew they weren't asking anything because they thought this will blow over. I will wait this out. I will be here longer than you will. This is never going to happen. So there were no changes and there were no emotions. Everybody just went back to work. And they were right, because within 3 or 4 months, the change program was gone. So when
Is
they
that
do show emotions, it's because they feel it will actually affect them. It will actually happen.
so? Do you think, you know, there was an element of denial there, but I think it was the overall apathy to change. That
Yeah.
was there too much change, or was there no vision? So people couldn't really understand what it was, what the strategic view was, or the journey they were supposed to go on. So they just ignored it, and therefore it didn't happen.
No, I think they had. If you look at, sorry, my partner is saying he's leaving. If you look at there's a model from Cameron and Green that we use in the previous version of change management. And one of the factors that is affecting the individual's behavior and change is the reputation of the company that he or she is working in and where the change is taking place. And the reputation had actually developed into, we're starting all sorts of programs, but we never finish them. We never see them through. So it's not, I think that not alone that the denial is making the change not happen, but also the company or the organization itself not seeing it through and getting a reputation of, yeah, we are initiating stuff, but it stays with a good idea and a nice road trip, visiting all the locations.
Yeah, so
Never to be
too
heard of
many new
again.
ideas and not enough follow through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Which is
that's
where the
one
good
of.
project management would come in as well. So if the two could work it hand in hand,
Sure, sure.
far more likely to
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
reach close out on a project with your people coming with you.
yeah. And combining that probably even with a sort of strategic management, but with proper project management, laying a foundation that would have been a large step forwards. Yeah.
In that vertical to change. That's absolutely brilliant, Tanya. I could continue chatting about this, all afternoon, but I'm really conscious we are beginning to sort of come to the end of our half-hour slot. Is there anything in particular that you sort of had burning that you wanted to know that was, what was going on, or anything particular that you came on that you wanted to share with us?
No, not really. Of course, I'm curious to know if there's any other model that you favor within change management besides Kubler-Ross, but we could also save something for next time.
We definitely could. I do quite like some of the force field analysis work. I just think that sort of acknowledging the resistance and working up the methodology to try and understand how you overcome that. That's definitely a model that I use regularly, because I just think if you can brainstorm out and find and ask people and come across just understanding the resistance, why would we not do something?
Yeah.
And understanding the sort of human factor there, then you can start trying to, it helps you build your own kind of business plan and model, how we should be doing it better to try and take those factors in and trying to understand, well, it's kind of sales, isn't it? It's selling the benefits of, and you need to be able to make sure that you can answer off all of those, or there are enough reasons, positive reasons, for why you should be pushing a change through and making these changes. And sometimes you might even want to, be thinking about doing something in the first instance, and you can almost do that force field analysis exercise, and if you can realize that actually you haven't got enough reasons to do it, it doesn't counteract, it's almost like a basic SWOT analysis, and you could start understanding that actually it's not worth putting people through that level of change if the benefit isn't there.
Yeah, true. Well, it can be a really rich source of information on how to improve your approach, both project management and change management. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I'm hoping that we can extend this conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to part 2. If there will be any, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
That is just lovely. That's brilliant. And it's so nice to make that connection. So I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us. Our talk next week is being led by Caroline Walton, and it is around our endpoint organization. We're becoming, we are an EPAO, and she's going to be talking more about the steps that we're going through and the different accreditation organisations that we're working with. So that should be a really fun talk next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much indeed, Tanya, and I really look forward to our next conversation. I hope that everything goes well with lockdown, and
yes,
you manage
for you as well. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. All the very best then.